beds at home. We got our work cut out for us, but we're looking forward to it.
Let's get down to business.
Obviously, he's not himself, but he's a soldier and he's fighting for his teammates.
That's it for this first half. It's been all Milwaukee.
So let's get down to business.
Durant for three. Durant fires and hits. This is a classic game for Kevin Durant. 2-point Brooklyn lead. Middleton with a pass and broken up.
Signature performance for Kevin. Him to have the toughness, the mentality, that's what makes him one of the all-time greats.
He's Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, what exactly is it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
What a show we have for you today. A historic, legendary performance from Kevin Durant to give the Nets a critical Game 5 victory. But we have some breaking news in the NBA, and it is not good for the Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard has notified his teammates they need to be ready for him not to be available in not just Game 5, but potentially the entire series. That is the play in which he tweaked that right knee. Jalen, what is the impact of missing Kawhi on this series?
Injury and luck always plays a factor with who advances in the playoffs and ultimately who wins the championship. This season seems different because it's the superstar players on the teams. It's Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers. It's an all-NBA guy like Anthony Davis missing for the Lakers. And Kawhi not being with the Clippers, that distinctly means I go from thinking that they're going to win this series to anticipating they're going to lose this series. That's the impact of the Kawhi Leonard injury. Because the Utah Jazz had the #1 record in the entire NBA. They broke a record for three-point shots. And yet, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George finally seem to be hitting their stride. They had back-to-back 30-point games each. Morris knocked down a ton of threes. Kawhi was dunking on people and really playing with ferocity. So without him, it's really unfortunate for the league and for the Clippers. And obviously, I feel bad for Kawhi. Hopefully, it's not a serious injury, but if he's not able to return in this series, they will not advance.
I agree. And 9 All-Stars have missed time in this postseason, which is just an unconscionable number. But Jalen, I also agree, missing Kawhi Leonard, he is the key to this team. Paul George is inconsistent. Kawhi Leonard is the opposite. He's always there for them. He's always getting 30 points. He's always locking down on defense, and they will not have him, and they will not advance if they don't have him for the rest of this series. That is not the only bad news for NBA fans. Another Western Conference superstar will be sidelined potentially. That is Chris Paul, who is now in the COVID-19 protocol. It is important to note that at this point, right now, we do not know the impact of that. Will he miss a couple days? Will he be available Game 1 of the Western Conference? Or will he miss the entire series? We don't know the severity of his testing positive or contact tracing. But Jalen, if they don't have him, what will that mean?
Well, we had Jay Crowder on the show yesterday, and he talked about the impact of Chris Paul and how it's not about statistics. But I want to tell you something that you missed with Chris Paul. His fourth quarter brilliance. Like, what he's done during the game is basically set up the chessboard and set the table so Bridges can eat, so Ayton can eat, so we can make Booker feel comfortable. And then in the fourth quarter, he became Mariano Rivera, the closer, keeping his turnovers down, his efficiency up, and his leadership has been unquestioned. And so this one isn't so doom and gloom for me, however, like Kawhi, because today's Wednesday. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals either is going to be Sunday or Tuesday. I don't anticipate he's going to be out longer than a week. So for me, if he's going to miss, I believe it will be maximum 1 game. And again, this is only anticipation. But either way, I believe he will return to play most of the next round.
Yes, it is important to know that there's certain, like a contact tracing investigation can last a couple days and then free him up to play. Or he could have tested positive, have symptoms in which he would be gone for a couple weeks, if not more. We do not know right now. However, Those are two major impactful stories for the Western Conference. But Jalen.
And he could be out the remainder of the series, sources told ESPN. Leonard tweaked the knee on a drive late in the Clippers' Game 4 victory, grimacing in pain as he planted on the way to the basket. He stayed in briefly. He didn't finish the game. He had said after the game, "No, I'll be good for Game 5. Reports suggest otherwise now. Our senior NBA writer Brian Windhorst broke this story along with Ramona Shelburne. Wendy, what more can you tell us about Kawhi's injury?
Yeah, just really disappointing news, Matt. It is a sprained knee ligament. Kawhi told his teammates last night that he was likely going to be out for the rest of this series, certainly out for tonight's game. The Clippers are hopeful that if they can advance, that they can get him back before the end of the playoffs. But this is an injury, Matt, that will be weeks, not days, to recover from. He's had knee issues on both sides before, so they're going to have to be cautious. In the short term, look for Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard to get more playing time. They missed him for 20 games this year where they went 11-9 in those games. Paul George's scoring average went up by about 5 points a game with Kawhi out, but his three-point percentage went down by about 10 percentage points. Obviously, a lot of pressure on him to have big games going forward.
Wendy, I understand I'm putting you on the spot here, but again, after the game the other night, Kawhi said, "No, man, I'll be good. I'll be in Game 5. What changed in that time? Was there some imaging done on the knee that located this injury and how we got here?
Yeah, he had an MRI yesterday, and I understand Kawhi said what he said, but you could tell that he was worried about that, and the game was not in hand, and they pulled him out of the game, and he didn't finish, which told you that they were concerned. And with his history of knee injuries, they're going to be careful, but this is a knee sprain. This isn't a caution. This isn't load management. This is a legitimate injury that would take down any player, and the timing is awful, and it's disappointing, and the Clippers still have to rise up, especially because we have news today that Mike Conley upgraded to questionable. He could be coming back for the Jazz very soon.
Yeah, Wendy, you heard us at the top of the show. Just a huge day in the NBA with breaking news. Brian Windhorst with the first of it. Sage, what do you have?
Unfortunately, more bad news, Matt, and it's out of Phoenix. Veteran star guard Chris Paul has entered the NBA's health and safety protocols, and it's unclear whether he'll be available for the start of the Western Conference Finals next week. And it comes 3 days after he scored 37 points to lead the Suns to their first conference final since the 2009-2010 season. So, again, Chris Paul, terrible timing for him as well as Kawhi. Coming off an amazing series against Denver, shot 63% overall, 75% from deep in this 4-game sweep. He averaged a double-double with points and assists. Thankfully, they won in 4 games, and so time is of the essence. There's a chance he may be able to come back for the West Finals, depending on how that series plays out. Let's welcome in senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski live with the latest on this. And we're going to start with this Chris Paul story. Woj, what can you tell us as he has entered the NBA's COVID protocols?
Well, Sage, now that Chris Paul is in the league's protocols, he tests every day, and he's going to have to test negative to be able to return to the Suns' playoff run. That Clipper-Utah series is tied at 2. They've got their Game 5 tonight in Salt Lake. And so the soonest that series could be over is Friday. If somebody wins this in 6 games, it could potentially go to Sunday in a 7th game. And that buys Phoenix time, for Chris Paul to test and eventually be cleared to return. But right now, there's no clarity on how soon he'll be back.
All right, Woj, once again, tough timing. Timing is of the essence with all of these situations right now in the NBA. At this point, are you talking to people in Phoenix? What's the level of concern that Chris is going to miss time?
Well, listen, there's great concern. The stakes are really high right now, but ultimately he's going to be at the mercy of the testing. And so right now there are no clear answers for anybody about what that timetable will be. Certainly, you know that they are rooting for a 7-game Clipper Jazz series, that's for sure. For sure. So the earliest the West Finals would begin is Sunday, potentially on Tuesday, which would certainly help the Phoenix Suns. So you'll keep us up to date on that. In the meantime, Matt mentioned at the top of the show some coaching changes. Let's start with the Pelicans. Stan Van Gundy out in New Orleans. Why? Sage, ultimately in some meetings between Stan Van Gundy and New Orleans management, David Griffin, their executive VP, they just were not seeing eye to eye on the future and how they would proceed together. And so after one season, Stan Van Gundy is out, and you can expect to see some of the names for this job, similar to the candidates they talked to just a year ago, assistant coaches like Ime Udoka, Jacques Vaughn in Brooklyn, Charles Lee in Milwaukee, Jason Kidd with the Lakers, among possible candidates as Zion Williamson heads toward his third head coach in 3 NBA seasons.
I was just going to say that's a lot of change for the young Zion Williamson. He was there for just the one season in New Orleans after just a year off in between that head coaching job with the Detroit Pistons. So from Stan Van Gundy in New Orleans to Washington. And maybe this coaching change, a bit more of a surprise, Woj. Why is Scott Brooks out in Washington?
His contract expired, Sage, at the end of the season. He had finished his original 5-year deal. They couldn't agree on a new deal. And Scott Brooks and management had talked extensively, but they couldn't agree to move forward together. I think there were questions about staff and assistant coaches, and certainly Scott Brooks, wanted to go forward with the staff he had. I think there were some questions about that, but ultimately